What interesting thing is this? A gigantic circular ice disk suddenly appeared on the frozen river. People can stand on it and spin along with the ice disk. Don't think that this is artificially made. It is actually a masterpiece of nature. These rotating ice disks usually appear on rivers after the ice has melted and come in various sizes. The larger ones can have a diameter of several meters, while the smaller ones are only a few centimeters. Aside from their shape being close to a perfect circle, they also spin in place. If you observe carefully, you will notice that the disk is located near a bend in the river. This is easy to understand. When water flows through a curve, the water near the outer edge flows faster than the water near the inner edge. When the ice in this area melts and breaks, the ice chunks that remain will start to rotate due to the different flow speeds of the water on either side. The ice chunks initially have irregular shapes, but during the spinning process, the edges of the ice continually collide with the ice along the bank. Thus, they are polished down until they become this regular circular shape. If the melted ice is not a single piece but a bunch of ice fragments, then this situation will occur. The fragments squeeze together and rotate against each other due to friction. Because these ice disks are quite rare, and people can't resist standing on them to feel the experience, but also consider the safety risks. Some will cut out these circular ice disks on sufficiently thick ice for people to enjoy and play on. How wonderful is this? What would you do to escape from an offshore drilling rig in an emergency? This is a special escape device designed for offshore drilling rigs. From a platform 80 meters above the sea, there is an emergency slide made of nylon netting. Workers slide down through multiple sections of tilted netting inside, finally landing on an inflatable life raft at the bottom. This raft is automatically deployed and secured once the slide reaches the surface of the water. Along with it, two white floating buoys descend nearby. These are actually two unopened inflatable rafts. As more people use the escape slide, those on the raft will pull the rope connected to the floating buoys. This rope acts as the switch. At that moment, the buoys open up like scallop shells, releasing the compressed inflatable rafts inside, which automatically inflate. In less than a minute, the raft transforms into an emergency boat that can carry 20 people, helping even more individuals to escape. With this escape slide, if a drilling rig were to experience an emergency, such as an explosion, 159 workers could be safely evacuated within just 10 minutes. As for those who think they can simply jump into the sea to escape, you might want to rethink that. The height from the platform to the sea is comparable to that of the Statue of Liberty, and the human body is unlikely to withstand such an impact. Even if you manage to land safely in the water, your safety is still not guaranteed. Beneath the rig, fish are frequently fed by the workers. Just a small cracker can attract a frenzy of fish, so there's no telling if the fish won't mistake you for food. Now, do you understand? The bubbling silver liquid you see in front of you is fishy water. After steel is soaked in it, the steel will be covered with a thin fishy layer, forming duxing steel. Don't be fooled by the fact that this layer is only 7 to 10 millimeters thick. It can actually extend the lifespan of the steel by 10 years. This is the amazing duxing process. However, before soaking in the fishy water, the steel needs to go through multiple tanks, each serving a different purpose. These tanks are arranged in sequence. When steel first enters the factory, it is covered with oil and rust. The first tank contains a heated degreasing solution that removes the oil and varnish from the steel's surface. After soaking for 10 minutes, the steel is rinsed and moved to the next tank. The second tank contains hydrochloric acid, also known as the pickling tank. Hydrochloric acid breaks down rust and other oxides. After soaking for an hour, the steel returns to its original color. Before proceeding to the next step, the steel is washed again to remove any remaining hydrochloric acid, as the next step is critical, soaking in flux. In the duxing process, flux is used as a poisoning solution to improve the quality and adhesion of the coating. After soaking for a few minutes, the steel reaches the final step, as seen at the beginning of the video. This tank contains fishy water heated to 440 degrees Celsius. The steel is dipped into the fishy water to form the coating. As the zinc reacts with the air, workers use special tools to continuously scrape off the oxides floating on the surface of the fishy water. A few minutes later, the steel emerges, glowing with a metallic shine. This marks the completion of the duxing steel, which is now heat-resistant and corrosion-proof. So, do you understand how it's made now? Touch it lightly, and your leg immediately hits the diving board of the building. This is a visual answer to the question many people ask about whether an athlete's body will hit the diving board when they dive. And this is considered lucky because some athletes might even hit their heads. It looks really painful. In the end, they awkwardly cover their head and press on it. There are also some who stubbornly insist that, even though they hit their head, they are still very skilled and that there's no problem. Once the takeoff is fine, the new question is how to make the splash smaller. We use a small ball for the experiment, comparing it to the athlete. When it falls into the water, a temporary air channel will appear in the pool. The water around the channel quickly gathers towards the center. At this moment, the water will collide in the center of the channel and burst out as a stream of water. This is the splash created when the athlete enters the water. To score high, you need to not only minimize the size of this channel, but also reduce the force of the water pulling towards the center. Usually, right after entering the water, the athlete will perform a move where they spread their arms. The goal is to disperse the water in the channel and reduce the force pulling the water towards the center. This way, the splash will also be smaller. The size of the channel mainly relates to the area of the athlete's contact with the water surface when entering. After completing all the twisting movements, the athlete will quickly adjust their body into an arch shape, with toes pointed straight and knees straightened. Most importantly, the hands must be as spread out and flat as possible. Only by entering the water with such a posture can the body minimize excessive contact with the water surface. Handling these details well will lead to good results. So do you understand now? The roof, which was perfectly fine, suddenly got blown away, from the warehouse straight to the front gate. Just a few minutes earlier, the house had experienced an artificial windstorm, with wind speeds reaching up to 300 kilometers per hour. This warehouse can simulate all kinds of extreme environments, from high winds, torrential rain, and hail to even wildfires. Outside the warehouse is a wall made up of 100 large fans, all operating at maximum power, spinning rapidly to generate winds of up to 400 kilometers per hour. Under such conditions, even a brick wall would struggle to withstand the force. Eventually, people came to a conclusion. Whether it's the roof being blown off or the entire house being swept away, the main reason isn't the weakness of the house itself, but the poor quality of doors and windows. Under the immense wind force, once a window or door is breached, the house turns into a balloon. The wind rushes through the windows and doors, filling the interior. As the wind inside builds up to a certain level, the house will burst apart, resulting in the scene witnessed at the beginning of the video. Additionally, inside the warehouse are several chimney-like devices. In wildfire tests, they continuously emit small sparks. These sparks, when landing on wooden houses, can easily ignite them. With the strong wind providing oxygen, it takes only half an hour for the flames to engulf the entire house. With this warehouse, people can conduct a series of extreme tests to improve housing materials and structures. Isn't it incredible? Pay attention to this. A giant machine weighing 4,000 tons is slowly moving. The machine at the bottom operates like two legs, moving forward with heavy steps. Meanwhile, the 5,600-ton excavator has neither tracks nor legs. It only has a massive circular base, yet it can still move forward. How is this possible? This giant machine, 40 meters tall and 160 meters long, is called the RK500 chain bucket excavator. When moving, the circular base continuously jumps forward. Because of its enormous weight, each time it drops, it leaves deep impressions on the ground. The reason it doesn't use tracks to move is that it is too heavy. If it stays in one spot for too long while excavating, it could sink into the ground. Inside the circular base is a hydraulic movement system. From the inside perspective, it looks a bit like Howl's moving castle. To better understand its operation, let's use a pair of chopsticks to represent the machine's body and hydraulic system, while half a plastic bottle serves as the outer shell of the base. The hydraulic system lifts the body and moves it forward a bit, then begins to lower, causing the outer shell of the base to move along with it. This is its movement principle. During operation, 33 buckets will follow the chain and continuously excavate soil from below. The excavation volume can reach up to 4,500 cubic meters per hour. At this time, the enormous circular base will exert its advantage, with its large contact area with the ground evenly distributing its weight to ensure the machine does not sink. How amazing is that? High-end land clearing often employs the simplest working methods. A trapezoidal device is attached to the back of a bulldozer, aimed to run over the designated area. In places with trees, the trees fall, and in exposed areas, the soil loosens. This device is called a triangular blade, composed of numerous sea urchin-shaped iron balls linked together. Workers attach it to the tail of the bulldozer, and once the direction is controlled, the rest is left to the throttle. For large-scale land clearing, all that is needed is to expand the blade and attach both ends of a chain to two bulldozers. The two bulldozers will run side by side, and the chain in between will uproot any bushes in their path. To achieve this, in addition to the bulldozer's powerful engine, the weight of the chain must also be significant. The protrusions on the iron balls not only can grip large trees, but can also penetrate the soil directly. Using this method, land can be cleared and soil loosened in just one day. Finally, driving a machine full of discs can sweep through and neatly arrange branches and roots on the surface for easier subsequent cleanup. Additionally, there is a method of underground underground land clearing known as roadway butcher. As the pressure blade gradually presses into the soil, it can loosen to a depth of over half a meter, easily severing the chaotic roots below. The rolling drum above contains seeds, and with each rotation, it disperses them into the soil, effectively integrating land clearing, soil loosening, and planting into one process. What interesting thing is this? A gigantic circular ice disk suddenly appeared on the frozen river. People can stand on it and spin along with the ice disk. Don't think that this is artificially made. It is actually a masterpiece of nature. These rotating ice disks usually appear on rivers after the ice has melted and come in various sizes. The larger ones can have a diameter of several meters, while the smaller ones are only a few centimeters. Aside from their shape being close to a perfect circle, they also spin in place. If you observe carefully, you will notice that the disk is located near a bend in the river. This is easy to understand. When water flows through a curve, the water near the outer edge flows faster than the water near the inner edge. When the ice in this area melts and breaks, the ice chunks that remain will start to rotate due to the different flow speeds of the water on either side. The ice chunks initially have irregular shapes, but during the spinning process, the edges of the ice continually collide with the ice along the bank. Thus, they are polished down until they become this regular circular shape. If the melted ice is not a single piece but a bunch of ice fragments, then this situation will occur. The fragments squeeze together and rotate against each other due to friction. Because these ice disks are quite rare, and people can't resist standing on them to feel the experience, but also consider the safety risks. Some will cut out these circular ice disks on sufficiently thick ice for people to enjoy and play on. How wonderful is this? This is how they transform a piece of cow horn into beautiful handicrafts. Workers use pliers to heat the dried cow horn over a fire. After about 10 minutes, the originally hard horn begins to soften gradually. At this point, the workers start to expand the horn as much as possible with the pliers. They then use a heated iron plate to flatten the horn. After another 10 minutes, the horn is fully expanded and shaped. This is a factory that makes handicrafts from cow horn. Before starting, workers need to boil fresh cow horns in a pot for 10 hours. After 10 hours, the bone core and marrow in the horn will have softened. At this time, the workers can easily press to remove impurities from the horn, leaving only the horn's pointed part that can be used for crafting. These separated cow horns are placed in a well-ventilated area to air dry. After 2 years, the horns become lighter and simultaneously harder and more durable. Because the dried horns are too hard, workers will first saw the horns into sections before cutting the remaining parts. Then, they heat the horns over the fire using pliers. After about 10 minutes of heating, the remaining moisture in the horn evaporates, weakening the connections between the keratin fibers, causing the hard horn to gradually soften. After being pressed and heated with a plate for another 10 minutes, the horn basically turns into a flat piece. At this point, it is ready for more detailed processing. Workers first use a cutting machine to trim uneven edges and then sand the horn. The purpose of sanding is not to make the surface smooth, but to make the horn thinner and thinner. During this process, any cracked areas on the surface will be completely sanded away, leaving only the smooth, paper-like part in the middle. Workers will paint on this surface and then cut it into different sizes according to demand and flatten it again. Finally, they will attach it to suitable items and polish it. After completing all these steps, a handicraft made from cow horn is finished. Drawing the bow, shooting the arrow curved and hit the target behind. This is a skill in archery known as controlling the flight of an arrow, which can only be mastered at the highest level. It not only exists in reality, but also allows the arrow to curve both horizontally and vertically. What's more, an archer can shoot 3 arrows at once, each aimed at a different direction, and hit 3 balloons simultaneously. The magic behind this lies in the fact that skilled archers have mastered the flight characteristics of arrows. Contrary to what we might think, arrows are not completely rigid. In fact, they possess some elasticity. As a result, when an arrow is shot, it doesn't fly straight, but constantly bends and sways side to side. This explains why beginners often miss the target, even when aiming precisely. Skilled archers excel because they have discovered a pattern. When the arrow sways, there are 2 fixed points known as nodes. Aligning the line between these 2 nodes with the target ensures an accurate hit. However, not every arrow has the same level of elasticity. To ensure consistent shooting, archers use an elasticity gauge to measure their arrows, keeping only those with nearly identical flexibility. This ensures accuracy. To make the arrow curve and hit the target, archers need to adjust the arrow's tail position. When the arrow's tail is not centered on the bowstring, after a short distance in flight, the arrow changes direction due to angular momentum and air resistance, causing it to curve. To achieve a second curve, the arrow's orientation is adjusted further forward, allowing the stabilizing fletching to encounter greater aerodynamic pressure. With high speed after the first curve, the arrow continues to reverse its angle, completing an S-shaped turn.